Yes. Thank you all for coming. That's a lot of people here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the topic is a little bit changed, but it's basically the same, so you probably won't be disappointed. So I'm Jacob Bonnekrantz. I do like a whole lot of more things than just XR, VR, AR. So feel free to talk about this. Talk to me about this later. But today I'm going to talk about what XR is, how we do XR, and then try to wrap the whole thing up in quite a bit of short time. So what is XR? I mean, it's just a bunch of names where they replace the VR or AR with an X. But in like virtual reality, you replace the entire reality around you with something else, a virtual reality. Where in augmented reality, you add to your reality. So a heads-up display is augmented reality. And then the rest of the names that you can hear in these things are just basically marketing terms around the same things, basically. But could you also think about XR in the use case or where you run into these things, like entertainment and work and your life?
Can you guys in the back hear him?
Okay, I'll try to speak louder. Yeah. So in entertainment, you often think about virtual reality because that's sort of where most people see it, either in movies or things like that. So entertainment, you have games. And this is where most people actually, or where it's most common to run into any kind of XR. You have, headsets are actually becoming kind of common, from very expensive ones to cheap ones. But also, cardboard boxes and a phone. And there's a whole bunch of different games. I chose these games just because it wasn't a shooter, so I tried to get something different. But you also have XR in work, and this is probably new to you, but it's slowly getting out there. And this is a pretty cool use case that I'm showing now, where you have a user that's wearing the AR glasses, so you're basically seeing out, but things can be added to it. And he's called with an operator who is seeing what he is seeing. And he sort of can guide this user through various things. So he can actually draw on the reality. So say basically, don't push this button or pull out this hard disk because it's broken, because I'm sitting here in front of my computer with all of the information that I have. Or he's maybe a specialist and say, he can tell him, how to repair a very expensive bit of engine or piece of equipment, and you have this user who might not have training on it, and they can much easier communicate, and there's a much higher bandwidth of information that can go through. And this is actually the DAQRI hardware, so if you were at XCC last year, you actually had a chance to try it out. But then there's also life. And life is kind of in the future. There's not so much out there. And one of the important things is that technology has to make your life easier. And right now I think XR is not making our life easier that much. For VR, it's that's a high level of setup. How many times have you restarted Steam VR just to get the headsets working and things like that? So how are we expecting that to actually make things easier? Or how much time does it take to pick up your phone and get the AR display up and running good? So there's a lot of work in there. And I actually chose this picture because it's Back to the Future and it's a great movie. But his Doc's glasses actually have AR in them, where he's actually looking into them and trying to see, getting a rear view mirror and how fast he's going. So it's pretty cool that such an old movie actually has elements of AR already in them. But his clothes are kind of, yeah. So then moving on, how do we do XR, especially in open source? And then looking at very simple, you have your programs, your application, your games, your things that is actually making, that is actually shown to the user. You have your platforms, and to draw a parallel between graphics, this is your X, your Mesa, all that, your operating, your Linux. And then there's hardware, which, kind of glossing over right here now. So what's in a platform? Well, there's API, for instance, for graphics, there's OpenGL, there's drivers, Mesa, algorithms, well, hyperparameters and compositors, Wayland, and input mapping, things like that. But that's also what's in OpenXR. Like all of these things need to go together, because you can actually composite multiple applications. So you have to reuse a whole lot of things, but also you have to completely write it anew, because it's not just a screen, it's reality. But most importantly, we need an API. And currently, we have the situation on the left where we have a whole bunch of different APIs, and there's no really uniform way of talking to it. Luckily, there's, just like OpenGL, there's work on something called OpenXR, and it's made by the same people that made OpenGL from Kronos. So there's people who are much better at talking about this than me, so there's a link. Once the slides are up, you can look at that. We'll actually talk a lot more about OpenXR, what it is, and more specifics. It's coming hopefully soon. But what we also need is, just like we have in Mesa, we need a community of XR developers. So we need something where we are collaborators trying to build up something from the ground, based on OpenXR, and trying to build a community around it once we can actually release it. And we actually want FOSS to not just be lagging behind. I mean, Mesa is soon, like, once the patches land, will actually be the first time ever that it's actually been up to the same version of OpenGL that has been released ever. But we want to actually be leading it. We want people to come to this community to do experimentations, to work on XR, virtual reality, augmented reality, and actually pay the wave, not just keeping up. And we want it to be open and accessible to everybody, so it can become part of everybody's life, not just hackers. That's kind of a lot. So try to wrap it up a little bit. Yeah, as I said, it's a cool future out there, and we are in an opportunity to actually be proactive, not just keeping up. And there's a whole bunch of work as well. So yeah, again, this is what I can talk about me. Try to talk right now about just talk. And thank you. And any questions?
Questions?
Yes.
You talk about to be a guy like OpenGL and Buddha. Are you planning to make a standardization for it?
Are you planning to make a standardization for it? So there's work inside of Kronos, and that we are part of making a standard API for that. But I can't really talk more about that than that, unfortunately. So it's, yeah, unfortunately. But yes, we are planning to do it, and we are planning to make a runtime for that, and we are planning to open source that once we can, basically once the spec has been released.
Are any of the big VR players involved in this?
Are any of the big VR players involved in OpenXR? Yes. There's Oculus, there's Valve, there's Epic, I think, the Google, all of the big ones. I don't know if I can say the rest of them that have just joined. Microsoft, even Microsoft is there, so. Yes?
So as far as I know, most of the VR hardware is not good.
No, that's
Is there any recommendation for which hardware, especially controllers, can you use for?
Oh, yeah. So there's Project North Star, which is do it yourself. I think there's one person has managed to build it themselves outside of Leap Motion to build it, but we're planning to try and see what's actually needed to do that, and then do the really hard bits and try and enable people more. For hardware, I actually don't know. For controllers, I would just, I think Vive is what we are going to use the most, so that's probably be the most supported in the future by open source. But hopefully somebody will hack together, or we always had a use case of people throwing together stuff out of old V-motes and ping pong balls and a camera. So we will see where we end up, basically. Anybody else?
I have like 13 minutes left, so well.
Okay, I was fast.
So, yeah.
Yep.
So is there like an early access beta? Anything? Is there anything available?
So right now,
Documentation?
no, there's just the talk, unfortunately, for OpenXR. I mean, there's all of the other APIs out there that you can take a look at. We have, I founded OpenHMD a long time ago, and that's available. You can produce that.
But you are involved in it, so what does it look like?
OpenXR, I don't know exactly what I can talk about, so I just refer to the talk where people have actually vetted through it and they much more in a presented way talk about it. But what you do is you get an API or you get a device, you tell it sort of what you want from this, and it gives you back the information, gives you back the user input. It gives you things that you render into and how to render into it. That sort of describes the hardware, and then you just keep doing that for all the frames, and it will sort of.
But you should remove the open and not put separate.
Yeah, well, it's open. It's open when it released, unfortunately, and its standards are kind of hard to do. Especially when there are actually people that are looking out for things to patent and then try to sue them. So this is a common thing that kernels actually have to deal with. So it's an imperfect solution to the current situation. I wish there was, I could just do it in open, unfortunately, but yeah.
At what stage is it right now?
Sorry?
At what stage is it working, or is it, you can't tell? What can you tell? That's the,
Go to the talk that they very nicely present about it, and that's basically it, unfortunately.
okay.
It's going to be open, and we are.
It's not open yet, but
It's not open yet, but it's going to be open. I mean, once it's released. Yes.
Have you ever contained any GPU waiter
Sorry.
for that? Because I'm caring about performance problems. Anyway, you see, there are many waiters provide such open API, OpenVR API for for VR usage, but there are some difference between lanes. It's quite hard to build something only fixed for one platform. You mentioned Unity layer,
Yeah.
which was worked badly at the AMD platform.
Yes. So hopefully, hopefully that API will solve these issues, and if it doesn't solve it exactly for you, you can add extension.
Can add any problem for that.
Yeah.
Yes. So you didn't have those security documents to solve this problem. Well, actually, solving this problem is
Well, yeah, I think that's a driver issue, so I think we can talk about it sort of, on the outside. Okay.
Yeah, taking them away.
Thank you.